Welcome to SunnySpeaks. Here again with another review for you, and you. And today, I'm going to talk about The Last Showgirl, directed by Gia Coppola and starring Pamela Anderson, Jamie Lee Curtis, Dave Bautista, and many more. Shelley, a tenured razzle-dazzle showgirl, must wrestle with her past, present, and future after finding out her show is closing in 2 weeks. This movie is a nothing burger wrapped in small spectacle. To me, the concept of this film is slightly interesting, but it chooses to limit itself with the choice of their main character and the way the story is structured. Pamela Anderson is annoying in this film, and in ways I think it's purposeful, with reaction shots from other showgirls showing their annoyance or almost disbelief in the way she talks about their show. But past the romanticism that she places on her profession, she's a bad mother, bad partner, and slightly okay friend, and completely self-absorbed. I don't have a problem with following a character like that. But where she loses me is that where she starts in this movie is where she ends, stuck in her illusion. That doesn't mean I wanted the character to get better or to break out of it and become disillusioned. If anything, I would have been fine with her devolving further and showing how that sort of way of life affects the people around you and the people that care about you. But again, where she starts is where she ends. She never changes throughout this entire movie. You don't get closer to her. You don't understand more of her. They just reveal more information about her and her past. But as she shits on everybody, the world shits on her. And if the movie took itself less seriously, maybe that would be more fun, but it's more awkward and uninteresting. My question to anybody watching, and the filmmaker, Gia Coppola, what was the audience supposed to take from Shelley's story? Is she a cautionary tale? That's what I assume, but if that is the case, I think there was a better way to showcase that. The presentation of this movie visually is average. At times, faces are blurred and it doesn't seem purposeful, more of a certain film technique that I've seen before in other films where the main focus in the center is more focused and everything around it is more blurred out or just blurry, like even people's faces. And I thought that was very off-putting at times, and again didn't seem purposeful, or at least was overlooked during the edit. But I do think the cinematography does work in certain times, especially when showing the showgirls and their outfits in particular. I think the way that they showcased the way they showed the outfits, I thought was very creative, showing it like very close up to certain stars and having their hands going across. I thought that those shots were really interesting, and the way that they would play on Shelley talking about how much love she has for the show and its history during those moments definitely added a magical and romantic element to what she was saying. It enhanced that part of the experience. But for the most part, this movie, cinematography wise, is very average and mundane at best. This movie has side characters that I found interesting, I guess. Jamie Lee Curtis plays Annette, Shelley's best friend, who was also a showgirl and got let go 6 years ago. And their dynamic as friends, Shelley and Annette, is okay. It's mainly just sad and parasitic. They have good chemistry as far as their conversations together, but you don't see a lot of them together, and they don't seem like they are the best for each other. Dave Bautista plays the producer of the show, named Eddie, who has history with Shelley, and he is constantly trying to connect with her in some way. I honestly really wish we got to see more of this character. I think that he was very emotional and very sensitive, and yet the way that he's shown is as the boss and as the person who's constantly bringing bad news to these people. But I found him very eye-catching. I think the way Dave Bautista plays him is very, again, vulnerable, and I appreciated the subtext that he showed with his emotions, because even though I do connect with the character and thought that he was cool, and I thought that Dave Bautista was very solid in the role, they don't give him a lot to work with, to be honest. I think it's because of the runtime of this movie, which is 1 hour and 29 minutes. Brenda and Kiernan Shipka play Marianne and Jody, two other showgirls part of the show, who are also wrestling with the fact that the show is ending and what to do next. Marianne was actually my favorite character, second being Jody. Marianne is definitely self-conscious about what she does for a living and seems stuck in this Vegas strip. And I found her detached attachment to the show very interesting. Jody is a 19-year-old who ran away from home to pursue this dream, and now the show is ending with possibly her family disowning her. And I think that is also a very interesting story that was not told. I don't think this movie would be better without Shelley. That's not what I'm saying. But I think this movie should have been about all of the Showgirls and the people involved with this show more than just one person. They're all wrestling with the fact that this is ending. That's something that has been around since the 80s, at least from what they said, or maybe even before that, is now ending in 2 weeks. Some of them are 60, some of them are 50, some of them are 19, 30, some of them are producers on this show, some of them are very close to the show, have friends who are still in the show but have been let go of it and still think about it and still dance around in their free time. There are people connected to the Razzle Dazzle, and yet all we show is Shelley's perspective on it. And to me, I think that's a disservice to what these other characters could have been, and especially if what Gia Coppola was going for is for it to be a cautionary tale, because then all of these different people in their lives are all being affected by this choice and this dream. But instead, we are left with Shelley, who is, again, very annoying, very mean, very selfish, and doesn't change in any sort of way. She's the exact same by the end. So it kind of just leaves you with this empty feeling where you don't connect with anybody, and you see these other characters that have an interesting story to be told, but aren't allowed to be fleshed out further. My main two problems with this movie is that it's too short, with a runtime of 1 hour and 29 minutes, which leads to no connection to anyone because we don't spend time with the characters enough. We didn't spend real time with Shelley enough to connect with her as a person. And if things are resolved between characters, it's either off screen or it's shown in one scene with no dialogue with music going over it. So you just are assuming like, oh, I guess that worked out, instead of actually feeling the catharsis of a problem happening and then it being solved throughout the runtime. And my second problem with this movie is that you never see the show, which is ridiculous to me, honestly. You see them talking about the show. You see them prepping for it before and after. You see them speaking on their experience on it, how dead the crowd is now compared to how it used to be, the sad vibe in the air, how it might be haunted, or just people saying that. You see people being very disinterested in what they're doing, but yet you don't get to see it. And so they have these conversations like Shelley, again, romanticizing the entire thing, even though it's not the same as it was. And then you have Marianne or Jody going against that with certain things that are happening around the Vegas Strip that they want to be a part of, or they think will just be more money, or looking at this as just a cash grab instead of something to actually dream about and to want to live forever. And instead of being able to pick one of those perspectives to side with because you are connected to it in some way, you are living through this experience with them, at least in this time frame of these 2 weeks, we're just hearing them have conversations. So we're not able to really side with anybody. We're just hearing a conversation and assuming that the person who is romanticizing it is overplaying it. But truly, I think it would have been cool if you were able to maybe pick Shelley's side, because in those moments they do look like they're having fun, or they do look very cool and are doing cool things. But you only see the show one time at the end, and it's barely anything. It's not even like a real, not saying I needed an entire show number, but I do think that having more of those moments of them working as a team together on stage would have helped connect more with what they feel, and maybe what they feel like they're lacking. Maybe even having shots of Shelley looking at the person who took her spot before that she held for like 40 something years, or maybe like a 20-year run or so. It would have been cool to see her longing for that but being in the background the entire time. Like stuff like that would have been interesting, but instead this movie chooses to just tell you things and not show you anything. The movie doesn't try to help you connect to these characters, so it's easy to just not care. With no real attachment on a visual level or even with characters and their dynamics or the way they're written, I would personally give this movie a cloudy rating. What makes me not give it the worst rating possible is that the movie is short. It goes by in a flash. I was there and I got up. It isn't abysmal. It just has no purpose, and I wish it did, because I feel like this movie does have potential. There is something here and a story here that I think could have been told in a very artistic and interesting way if the characters were allowed to live more and breathe more, if we were able to be there with them more, if we saw more of them, more of these individual characters in their home lives and what that looked like. But again, instead we are stuck with Shelley as the last showgirl, and I got tired of her as a main character. I got very bored a lot of times. They have these shots that they continuously go to where she's just looking up at the sky and having a cool outfit, I guess, and like dancing around, or just like looking at the sky and just like pondering of what if and all this. And it's like, I don't feel much from that. I don't feel much from that. That's not actually telling me about this character. There would be better ways to showcase that. But at the end of the day, that is just my opinion. I would love to hear anybody's opinion on this movie, because perspective is key. And just because I feel a negative way about a film does not mean that your perspective couldn't help me see the movie in a different light, or just sharing it is important because maybe we can both help each other with our opinions and our perspectives moving forward. No hate for this movie at all. I don't have room in my heart to hate really anything. But this has been my review of The Last Showgirl. Again, cloudy rating. I really wish that I enjoyed this movie more, but sadly I didn't. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. I'll be back again. Peace.